This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, members of the Set and Scadrial? This is Stephen, your host with Fantology Podcast, along with my lifelong friends Josh, Jake, and Ben, talking about The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. This episode is going to be hopefully quick and no spoilers, so feel free to listen. And then we are also going to be recording back-to-back a full spoiler episode with theories and all that stuff. That'll come out after the book comes out, so don't worry about spoilers. For now, we're just talking high level. How do we like the book? What can you expect as a fan of the previous books? Will you like it? What kind of score are we going to assign it? That type of stuff. So with that lead in, how did you guys like the book?
Oh, okay. I'm going to give it like 2 scores. 1, just pure enjoyment while reading it. And 2, like seeing it, how like just kind of set aside enjoying while reading it and seeing if it like matched all my expectations going into it. If that
So
makes
an
sense.
advanced scoring right off the bat. Okay.
Advanced or convoluted?
I'll give it like a 9.
It's advanced.
I'll give it a 9 for just like enjoyment while reading it.
Okay.
But like a 7 for like payoffs for the Era 2 as a whole.
As an individual book, you enjoyed reading it, but then as like in the context of it's the last book of the Era 2
right, like
series, you're like, yeah.
After I sat down, like that was amazing, and I still want, like, I'm not ready for Era 2 to be over, if that makes sense. So that's
Was that so? Do you feel like your expectations from Era 1 were not necessarily met in Era 2? Like Era 1 edited super epically and was awesome.
No, I think it was just more like plot lines that Era 2 introduced that I wanted a better resolution to. And we're going to get all into all of this in our spoiler review. But like when I was reading it, I was like, typical typical Sanderson, right? Like I'm reading, I'm like, this is amazing. And then I sit down and like think about it for 5 minutes. I'm like, but wait, what about all these things? You know what I mean? And
okay.
That doesn't happen to me often while reading a Sanderson book. So that's kind of so 9 just like enjoyment while reading it. But then I don't know, it's kind of like when you watch like Thor God of Thunder or something, and you're like, or what's the
Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
He is the God of Thunder, but also the movie's called Love.
75% of that title. Good enough.
I'm like, you're just watching like, this is such a fun movie to watch, and then you're afterwards you're like, but wait, So
I think that's a fair comparison. Actually, I kind of like that comparison.
Oh, it's not too convoluted for you.
It was convoluted, but you can agree with it.
All right, Jake, Josh, what'd you guys think?
I think I'd give it like a overall 7 to 8 out of 10. Hard, probably 7 out of 10. I think it's the best of the Era 2 books. I think they slowly get better with each installment, and I think this was the best one. So most of my enjoyment was just the Cosmere connections. It's a pretty Cosmere heavy book, and that was the majority of the fun for me. Not as much the characters. Some of the characters I liked what happened with them, but it was mostly like not even necessarily the plot so much as just how it connected to other things. That's what like the prime enjoyment of the book was for me.
So it's like a Marvel comparison, I guess. Just the connections to the MCU are all there, so that's fun. But you sit back and you're like, yeah, the movie was okay.
I mean, I think it's in line with the rest of the books in Era 2. Like it's not like the plot was like any less developed than that. I think the plot was probably the most, I don't know, Bands of Mourning. It's probably about on par with Bands of Mourning's plot. But yeah.
And Jake, you and I did a reread of Era 2 leading up. I think Ben and Josh, you haven't read Era 2 in a while, right? Or did you also?
No, I read it.
Ben did it
last year.
Oh, that's right. You did. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was further back than you, but relatively recently.
Overall, like fairly current.
Yeah, I can remember each of the plot points from the previous books.
Okay, Josh.
Yeah, so the context for me is that I haven't done a reread. Like I've only read Era 2 once, and I read each book pretty much as they came out. So so it's been a while for me, and I think I'm gonna give it the low score. Like this book for me, I agree with what Ben said. Like I really enjoyed reading it. There wasn't anything about reading it that really was off-putting, which but that's kind of like table stakes now for Sanderson, right? Like if you're an author with 20 plus books out, I mean, I don't know, I guess that's not completely true. Like some authors put out stinkers, but for me, that's table stakes with Sanderson. So I think I'm landing around like 6.5 to 7 out of 10. And similarly to Ben, like there's just things about it that we'll talk about in the spoiler section that like I just can't really get past. And they, unlike Ben, they bugged me while I was reading it. Like I kind of kept thinking like, but I want them to go back to this, and then they just never did. And it hampered my enjoyment. So it's still, I mean, like, of course, still everything that Sanderson does well, he does well here. Like the prose is fine. Nothing gets in the way. I enjoy the characters probably more than Jake. I really like them. There's one or two characters in here that did that had really, really great character arcs that for me elevated the entire book and the entire series. And so there's a lot of things that were really well done. There's just a few big things that I wish were different or done better. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Do you think so? When you say maybe you're a little unsatisfied, are you able to separate your expectation for a Sanderson from that rating? Because I feel like it's like, there's a lot of anticipation. The newest Sanderson, right? Like these books are usually really good.
Yeah, I guess. But like, one, we kind of got this arc unexpectedly. So like I hadn't like fully gotten the hype train yet because, I usually fall prey to all the marketing and all the podcasts and all the YouTube videos and all the, stuff like that. Versus this one, I was just like, oh wait, we have this. Let's get started reading it. So like I don't feel like I was.
Yeah, so we're the first ones. Like you're
you're
going in unbiased. Yeah. Right. Okay.
So, which I do want people to be hyped for this book. I think that there's a lot to love about this book. Like I've seen people, like Murphy made a great video about what she was looking forward to. And it seems like she's going to really enjoy it, like based on a lot of the things that she was saying in that video. Like there's a lot of people on like BookTube and in our Discord that I think are gonna really enjoy it and have payoffs. But I do think that it's not just me, like not like personally wishing things that were different. I feel like there were things that are like, I mean, obviously with art, nothing, like everything is subjective, but I do think that there were like some definite things that like should have been done better and should have had like a bigger payoff than.
So how do you rate it? How do you rank it compared to the other?
It's hard for me. It's been so long. I feel like I've liked every book in Era 2 about the same amount.
So about this, so you would rate them, you think you'd rate them all around a 6.5 then?
Yeah, which maybe not. Maybe I like the other books a little bit more than this one.
6.5 is a low score for Josh.
Yeah, that's like
okay. You liked the other books, like you like Shadows of Self.
Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna say, like, as somebody
there's like some. Yeah, go ahead.
As someone that shares, I think a lot of the same opinions, Josh, but has done a reread recently. It's not. I think I like this book more than the others, but the other ones didn't have as big of a burden to carry, right? So like, the first book, you're like, okay, like Miles' 100 Lives, like this is a fun story, like, but there was nothing, like, this book technically is way better than that book, but for what it was just like such a fun book to read. You know what I mean? Like there was no expectations, no like intricate plot lines or anything. And so I think by the time you get Bands of Mourning, it's a little bit like higher stakes. Suddenly you have like these potentially like world-defining powers being thrown around. You have preservation kind of stepping into the foray a little bit more. Harmony. And so, Harmony. Yeah. So anyway, the burden gets heavier and heavier.
I like that Ben just stepped in and like actively performed twinism on your.
No, it's because Josh. I know that we share the same opinion.
Wait, I know Josh's opinion here, but actually, wait, let me like.
But I know how to articulate it better. I'm reading his mind right now. Yeah.
No, those are all solid points. And it's hard because the other thing to add to that in terms of comparing them to other books, like, so there's also been a lot more books written since then in the Cosmere, and like Sanderson's gotten to be a better author, and I've seen, what he's more capable of writing. You know what I mean?
I get that point, but at the same time, like Bands of Morning came out in like 2016, 2017.
It was around then, yeah.
That's still 5 years ago.
5 years.
But I mean, like, at least 2 of Stormlight were out by then.
Yeah.
Oathbringer and Rhythm of War have come out in between.
But I think Bands of Morning
so I mean, like,
personally my favorite book out of these.
I guess what I'm saying is like Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, I think, are much better written.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot more time spent on that. And so to me, like, I feel like, I don't know. It's not like,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like he chooses to spend more time on some things than others.
Yeah.
So.
That's the thing though. That's what's making me kind of nervous, is to see like potentially a dip in quality because he is a little bit overextending himself. Right. Like, and that feels hard to say, but
a different quality in what?
Well, in terms of this book, like what I was hoping for, like in terms of balancing, you know what I mean? Like I was hoping that this book might be a little bit better balanced than it was. And
I think it's par for the course for Era 2.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
But that's the thing. I don't want Cosmere to be like this weird tiered system, right? Like, which I know it kind of has been, but that's also been as he's progressively gotten better as an author, right? Like it does make me nervous for like secret projects, right? Like
I am not expecting the secret projects to be anything too
amazing.
Great. Like
yeah,
I think if you're expecting secret projects to be on level of Stormlight or like any other Cosmere book, I think your expectations are way off.
Okay, so we should have a tiered we should look
he
at
obviously
Stormlight.
didn't spend as much time on them. They're shorter books, they're not as important stories. Like
no,
I'm expecting them to be fun reads, but not much more.
So should we look at like Stormlight as being like the theatrical releases and like Era 2 as being like the made for TV version?
Disney Plus show.
Disney Plus show.
Well, depending on the Disney Plus show.
So
should we compare every work of Brandon Sanderson to a Disney Plus show?
It's not She-Hulk, right?
Okay, this is how it goes. It's
not WandaVision.
This is how it goes, guys.
Oh, WandaVision was great.
That's what I'm saying. It's not WandaVision, but it's not She-Hulk.
Okay, I got the comparison. So Stormlight Archive is like the Avengers movies. It's like the cream of the crop. Like here's the like where all the resources are going. Like once every 5 years, a great Avengers movie comes out.
I mean, they haven't like come together as much as
but
the
I'm just saying
movies.
Like in terms of like
so
the
high
section.
He's just talking quality.
Yeah, it's just like the high level.
I guess I'd say for me it's more like they're like some of the Iron Man movies and the Captain America.
No. So those are like Mistborn, like the Mistborn level books are like the regular theatrical.
Okay, so
I love how this is getting into us rating Avenger or Marvel, because I think Iron Man 1 is way better than the first Avengers movie.
I know, but I'm just like comparing them like in terms of like the quality, like the amount of time spent and like resources dedicated.
Yeah, I know.
And then you get like then the Kickstarter is like the Disney Plus series. Like that's where he's gonna like throw projects that he's like had in his mind, but there's not a lot.
We'll see what those are.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think
or like these alternate publishing strategies.
No, Josh, that's like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the Kickstarter.
No,
well, Josh loves Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so that's not going to be fair.
Dude, okay, forgive me. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started coming out in like 2015. Okay, it was a fine show for the time. Yeah, don't shake your head at me.
Hey, so can I give my review?
Jake is just salty because of never mind. I was going to say Wheel of Time. What's his name? Rafe. That's where Rafe got his start.
Yeah, and I think it shows.
All right, can I want to give my review, please? Is now the time?
You can.
All right, I want to assure people that the sky is not falling here on the Brandon Sanderson hype train, because my other 3 hosts here
I didn't bag on it. I enjoyed reading it.
I don't know if we're bagging on it, but we're certainly not saying anything positive. I liked this book. I thought it was the best of Era 2, and I actively disliked most of the first 2 Era 2 books, and I liked Bands of Morning.
You're not doing a great job.
Well,
No,
I'm
he's
just
setting
saying
the
that
stage. Like
I
this
feel
is where
like
his Yeah.
I feel like the trajectory is better in Era 2. You guys are like it's going down or it's flat. I feel like it's better than the previous books.
I think each book in Era 2 has gotten better than the last one. I think this one's a little better than Bands of Morning.
Yeah, and for me, for me, Stephen, though, I'm not comparing it to just Era 2 because I haven't done a reread of those. I'm comparing it to like the works of Sanderson as a whole, and I do feel like it's a little bit not up to par with some of the.
I feel like it's a little bit of a preference thing, and none of our preferences are really right in this Era 2 niche, right? Because so I liked the book. Era 2 is not my favorite because I feel like the tone of Era 2 is just off throughout, because it's this interesting industrial revolution time where there's a lot of room to kind of, Mistborn Era 1 was like fairly gritty, and I feel like industrial revolution is like a fairly gritty time in world history, and he just doesn't explore that at all. It's just so goofy the whole time, and he's got these themes that he plays into a lot.
Hold on.
And
I'm going to push back on that a little bit. He does explore it, but he doesn't ever get in the weeds. But he definitely has Morrissey that thinks about like the poverty stricken, and he does have like
so there's ideas present there, but he never like leans into them.
Yeah, they're always it seems like consistently the status quo is upheld for the greater good.
Right. So there's never that, and I know Sanderson doesn't really get into the morally gray stuff as much, but I just feel like this setting suits that a little bit more. And part of this is a comparison that I know has been made a lot before on Reddit, but the comparison is to Abercrombie on this, who writes Age of Madness in the same setting. And I just like that setting. I like the tone of that setting so much more.
Age of Madness is kind of in a similar industrial revolution setting, but it's more in a revolutionary setting as well. It's more like the French Revolution than like.
There's been hints at revolution throughout all of Era 2.
Right. Yeah, but it's a whole plot of the second book.
Yeah, and it's like part of the plot in the first book. Yeah,
and the themes do carry over, but I mean, it's not like you have guillotines lined up like they kind of.
All right, no spoilers for Age of Madness.
Yeah.
We might not. I mean, that's just kind of those are the tones, right? And so I just feel like Era 2 never really jived with me, but for some it does. And so honestly, if you liked the previous Era 2 books, if you didn't think the humor was goofy, like there are a lot of fans of Sanderson's who really enjoy this, and that's their preference. It's maybe not ours quite as much. That all said, I liked this book better than the previous books because I felt like it leaned in. I felt honestly, after reading the previous 3 not too long ago, I felt like his writing has gotten better. In the past 5 or 6 years, it was just a little bit easier to. Sanderson's always easy to read, but I enjoyed the reading. I thought it was really smooth and fairly well written. And I thought the plot got bigger, and I enjoyed the Cosmere connections, and I enjoyed where the characters went. I understand I know what you guys are going to say in the spoiler section. I think those things are all valid, but they just didn't bother me as much because my expectations going in were kind of that this book was going to be what it ended up being. And so I was satisfied, and maybe even like a little bit, maybe over expectations for me, but my expectations were admittedly not super high. So if you like the previous books, I think you'll love this one.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, I think, it's very comparable to the earlier ones, and it just gets better. If you really, like Steve was saying, if you've been a huge fan of Era 2, you're going to really like this book because it has like everything you'd want compared to the other ones, plus more, and a lot more of the Cosmere connections. And if you haven't been a huge fan of Era 2, it's like definitely worth the read because there are so many Cosmere connections, and it is the best one out of the 4, in my opinion. And I think for both audiences as well, like if you love Wayne is really great in this book. And if Wayne has been annoying to you, Wayne is at his best in this book. So
yeah.
Well, honestly, Jake, I always thought Wayne was really annoying, but the humor didn't bother me as much. There are certainly times where I was like, this is over the top. This is not funny. but
That's
I
what I
thought
mean,
that it wasn't as much. Wasn't
I
as
think Jake
bad.
was saying it was best in terms of like it was
Yeah.
actually enjoyable.
Oh,
in
okay.
this
Like
book.
the
Yeah,
best,
yeah, yeah. Like I
the
think,
best
yeah,
version. Sure. Okay.
yeah. Like yeah. So even if you aren't a huge fan of Wayne, like I think you'll connect to him a lot more in this book. Yeah, Wayne, right? I always get the names
Yes.
mixed up.
Yeah.
So and I do just want to sound off one more time. Like my score is lower than maybe what I usually give. But that doesn't mean it's a bad book at all. Like it's a personal preference thing. I think a lot of people are really going to like it. I liked a lot of it. There were a lot of plot lines that I thought were S tier that were done exceptionally well. And so like there are just things that it's really hard for me to get over. Maybe in like a year after I'm not as upset about those things, maybe it'll go up or whatever. Like, but
It's going to take Josh about a year to get over the trauma he's suffered through this book, but by the time he's done with it, he'll probably like it.
probably there you go. I just don't want people to like not be hyped for it because of my rating. Like, if
Josh,
that
I
makes
think you're
sense.
overestimating how important you are.
No, I know, but
It's not you, Josh. It's us.
Yeah, the
company-
fans are all
company-
waiting for the big
ours.
Josh
Yeah.
review.
who's gonna shove it?
No, I mean, lest
All
we
right.
forget, I gave it a
Any
9.
final words before as we wrap up this non-spoiler section?
I think we can. I want to mention some standout characters. I mentioned Wayne. Wayne is a standout character. I think Steris. I think it's probably Wayne, Marcy, and then Steris. Those are really standout characters. In this book, really enjoyed that, and it's cool to see how their characters have progressed so much. So,
Mhm. Yeah, let's do
All
some
right.
spoilers.
So hopefully you're hyped for the book now. Just if you're not hyped, just listen to my section because I liked it. So
also,
Steven just cuts this whole episode down to just him.
yeah.
Also, we didn't mention that. I mean, we mentioned that it's Cosmere connected, but we didn't mention how so much. So, if you want a non-spoiler like prep for like what kind of things this book is connected to, check out our other video that goes over that. But
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like what you should read for
Yeah.
Lost Metal. So
Yes, indeed. The too long didn't watch on that one is you should read the Cosmere before you read this if you want to pick up on all the connections. So
Yep.
there you go. But yeah, I'm not in that video, but you guys break it down a lot better than that. So we're also going to be at Dragonsteel Con, and if you see us there, come and say hi because that'd be delightful. I'll be wearing some kind of Fantology shirt and be in a large wheelchair, so you'll probably recognize me. So there's that.
and he might be with Jake, depending on how much guilt trip we can put on Jake.
yeah, maybe let me know what. Yeah, maybe. Comment
All right.
below if
On
you
that,
want me there.
on that really upbeat
If
note,
this video
that's a
gets
wrap.
to 30 likes, then Jake will.
Yes, yeah, 30 likes, guys.
Okay, that's a big bar. All right, see everyone later.
Yeah, bye.